Being a chartered manager means that you are a specialist in that area, and it means you've got all the skills to do the job to the best of its ability.
You are seen as a leader, a true leader who has credentials behind the great work you've already been doing.
It's enhanced my understanding, it's enhanced my skill set, it's improved my mindset.
It makes all the difference.
This session is recorded and will be available on the CMI website and YouTube channel. Join the conversation by using the live chat box for your questions and comments. We'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Bolton. I am the Events Delivery Manager at CMI. Welcome to the Creative Leadership Innovating When Every Penny Counts digital event. Please don't forget to join the conversation by using the live chat box. Feel free to ask as many questions as you have for our speakers, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible during the Q&A session. So without any further delay, I will now hand over to Sarah Maskell, who is the CMI North East Yorkshire and Humberside Regional Board Chair, and she will begin today's event.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good evening or good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. As mentioned, I'm Sarah Maskell, your host for this session, and I am delighted to be able to virtually welcome you to the call. I have been looking forward to today for the longest time. By means of an introduction, I have the absolute privilege of being a chartered manager, a companion member of the CMI and chair of the North East Yorkshire and Humberside CMI Regional Board. And along with an incredible band of volunteers, we're able to bring together events like this evening for growth, thought leadership and building connections. A very special thanks to the team, with a particular thanks to Leanne Pearce-Soanes, the events lead from our board, who masterminded this event, and to Amanda Reist for making this connection with Richard. Without further delay, I would love to extend a warm CMI welcome to Richard Leavis, our guest from St George's Crypt in Leeds. Hi.
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here, and thank you for that beautiful introduction, Sarah. That was really kind. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the session and to the stage. I wonder if we might jump straight in and ask you to share a little bit about you and, of course, St George's Crypt.
Yeah, so as Sarah said, my name is Richard Leavis. I am the corporate fundraiser for St George's Crypt, and my role at the Crypt is to raise funds. We are a homeless charity based in Leeds city centre, been around now for 95 years as the Crypt, so an awful long time. And the main priority of St George's Crypt is to deal with the homeless people in the city centre. It's our aim to move them from the chaos of homelessness into citizenship, to move people from that chaos back into their own home, back into work, into society. It is a constant challenge to do so, and the reality is that the Crypt, as I say, has been there for 95 years. We are seeing currently a real increase in homelessness with the economic climate that we're currently in. But the Crypt works incredibly hard to look after their clients, and we do see great successes. We have, on average, and I must stress that on average, an 84% successful move-on rate, which means that we really do move clients from that chaos back into their own home, back in with families, back in with the real world, really, and they're back in society just like me and you are. It's Yeah, I was going to say, I could talk for hours is the reality, Sarah. It's just such a broad range of things, but we do a daily lunch service that feeds roughly 100 people on average through the door. We offer emergency housing on a daily basis, and across the city of Leeds now, we do house roughly 200 people, all who were previously rough sleepers, or who are vulnerable or have some form of physical, mental, or addiction issue as well. So it really is the most vulnerable people in the city that we look after.
Perfect. I'm going to be a bit cheeky and ask about you and how you got into that role, because it feels like a real sort of passion to be able to step into that space.
It is, yeah, and I'll talk really openly and honestly today, so please forgive my candidness a little bit, but I've had a major change. So I was previously, came to Leeds as a student, started off studying law, went into banking, worked for HSBC for a number of years. I was moved into mortgage brokering, and in the end did that for around about 9 years as a mortgage broker, but really reached the end of my journey and felt like I'd learnt everything there was to learn in that area. So it was quite a high pressured environment as well, to be quite frank. Sales, and you hear a little bit about that today. But the change for me happened post-COVID. I realized that I wasn't comfortable in my current environment. So packed that in and joined the Crypt. And to be quite honest, it's an absolute blessing. On a personal journey for myself, I've not always been perfect and made mistakes. And the reality is, without the support of my parents, I've been in a very different situation to where I am now. And that really is where the passion comes from. To see the guys and the girls who come through our doors on a daily basis, who don't have the support of one parent, let alone two. It really is, you know, I don't worry about anything anymore now. I've seen what goes on at the Crypt. I don't worry about my washing machine or my dishwasher not being emptied and things like that, because it just really puts things into perspective. And genuinely, on a daily basis, I see major transformations at that place. People coming in who are 5 stone wet through, got absolutely nothing on their bones, and then within 12 months they're standing proud, they've got a smile on their face, got light in their eyes again. It's just amazing what happens at the Crypt.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, one of the things that we really value from a regional perspective is how much richness there is within our region, but also the sort of the range of opportunities, the range of challenges that people face. So, you know, tonight's session around creative leadership, what does that mean for us? I'm sure everybody on the call will be sort of interested for takeaways personally and professionally. So thank you for your sort of candid sharing of that. I understand the Crypt's been around for a number of years, since 1930, and celebrates a big anniversary this year. And I'm wondering what that means to you, but also to what extent the charity's had to innovate and change over that life cycle.
Yeah, it really means a lot, to be honest with you. The charity is incredibly proud, and there isn't another one in the city of Leeds that's been going for 95 years. So as a charity, it really is standing out there as an institution at the moment. The way that the Crypt has done that has been by it being innovative and changing consistently throughout the years to meet the needs of the city. So that has really been the focus. And to give a little bit of, I guess, longer term insight, obviously it opened up post-war. So PTSD, or shell shock as they called it then, the Great Depression. So it's simply a case of opening the doors. In the 50s, it moved towards rebuilding families and started things like Hope House, which was a place for families to come together and live, and a shelter for women, that sort of thing. Into the 80s, it moved into more of a drunk tank, to use that phrase, which is where individuals, for example, would come and spend 3 nights here because they're alcoholics. And then they would go back into the family because the family unit was still very strong then. Now we're moving into the modern times, and the reality is the family unit has broken down quite considerably. We are seeing people come through with mental, physical, and addiction issues. So a broad range of things, rather than in the past it may have just been one. And the way that the Crypt has adapted to that is we've now grown post-COVID from 2 sites across the city to 7. We have altered our structure quite dramatically in terms of how we move towards pathways for clients. So very much it's grown and it's adapted to meet those needs as the city has changed. And I think that's a really key message to pass on to every other listener here, is to look around at what your clients, or in our case, it's the city, but it could be your customers, your clients, whoever they may, and work out what their needs are. What is the next thing that's on their mind? What's their priority? And aim towards that. That's what the Crypt is always looking for, is what's the next issue on the horizon. For us at the moment, and you know, I don't want to depress everybody or anything like that, but it's major drug use, and it's cheap influx of drugs, to be quite frank, that is our problem right now. For your clients, as I say, it could be that they're looking for a new car or whatever it may be, I don't know, but it's just about thinking about that future all the time, having an over the horizon view to make sure that you're there and ready to jump on those new changes. And one of our projects, for example, just to touch briefly on, is Kirkstall Road project. Entirely new concept for us. We now have 15 shipping containers on a building site. The builders, who are a good partner of ours and helped us previously to build one of the properties, have stayed in contact, so we've kept that relationship strong. And now they're building on a different site, a commercial basis, entirely for them, but they've given us the space whilst it's being built, to put the shipping containers on there free of charge. So we've kept those strong relationships with the people, and it's allowed us now to provide 15 more bedrooms, entirely, self-sufficient units. And I really must stress that it is about keeping those relationships, looking to the future with others around you. That really has allowed the Crypt to stay relevant and to stay at the forefront of the care of the city.
I'm really blown away by it. So as somebody who is a veteran, I spent 20 years in the military. I think you've just opened up a real thread of conversation about sort of how society's evolution and how we think about change and how we look ahead. We also need to look back as we've sort of prepared and navigated those changes. There are a couple of the CMI values that I think your activity really embodies, the main one being practical, that relationship that you've built with that developer and what that means for you, but also what it means for those people who use your services and the life impact you're making with them. I think there's so many threads. We could talk for hours, but there are so many threads as our sort of delegates listening in either online or listening back to this with a cuppa. I think there's something about how we think about the bigger picture. It makes me think. Oh,
no,
please.
I was going to say, Sarah, it is vital to think around the larger picture all the time. The reality is that relationships are built on a smaller basis. It's an individual talking to an individual, but you do need to have that longer term vision in everything. Sorry.
No, I think that's really useful. For me, there's something about looking back over those decisions that were made and whether they are sort of historic strategic decisions that somebody had the foresight to say we need to pivot to something else as the decades move on. The connection of that with innovation, do you think it's created, we talk at CMI about a culture of innovation. Do you think that's created that culture of innovation or at least evolved it?
It certainly has. And I think that one of the strengths in some ways, and it may be different with different organizations, but one of the strengths of the Crypt is we very much do have an open door policy at every level. It's an entirely different type of organization than I've ever worked for before, to be quite frank. And I think that's a real strength of the Crypt, where no matter your level, whether you're a support worker, whether you are higher up the chain, you can go and knock on each other's door and have that conversation straight away. That culture has been built through years of everybody to a certain extent doing everything. Now we have had to change that, and now as we move into the modern world, having 7 sites and it's really got some structure, but there is a lot of value to that old-fashioned thinking of just knock on the door, have a conversation, have a cup of tea and a chat. And I would really, again, encourage everybody to forget some of the layers and the levels that are within your organization and do just have those conversations with people. The way that the Crypt has explored its different revenue streams and different opportunities is by having those conversations. And it does mean that in some ways, no, let me rephrase that, sorry. Because what I'm trying to say is that we don't just talk to each other. We talk to wider organizations as well. Coming onto something like this, for example, CMI is a perfect example of that and a massive opportunity. But also we work closely with the council, with other projects, with previous people who, for example, we may have dealt with 10 years ago, but that relationship has fallen down. Let's pick it back up and see where they're at now and where we are too. I think you've always got to be questioning, as you say, the previous decisions and the future. One of our great strengths is that previously we've had some very strong leaders at the Crypt. I cannot deny that. And they've absolutely set the success up for the future. One of the ways they've been done that is because as strong leaders, they have had quite a, they've been very, they've had quite a low risk appetite, so a high risk. So they've been really happy to take risk, is what I'm trying to say, to push the boat out, to try new things and develop different opportunities. So the Regent's Lodge, which was the first property that the Crypt builds, is literally the first building in the city that's ever been built for the needs of the city. So it was one of the first properties that a charity, a housing association within the area developed. And that's put us at the forefront of the council's thinking. It's put us at the forefront of the business's thinking, which means that they naturally revert back to ourselves. And that taking that risk many years ago has set us up for success now. So I would encourage everybody to take that moment to look back, see what's happened in the past, see where they've taken a chance on something and it's worked out well, or hasn't, but they've learned from it, because you'll be very surprised how much has already been done before, either successfully or not. And I'm constantly looking back over our articles, over our previous history, to see how can we change things. And by having, again, that open door policy, so everyone talks to each other, it means that the staff are happy, everyone feels valued, it keeps a low staff turnover. It really does mean that people stay and we keep the talent, which I think is vital, is to keep that talent for the longer term. There's still people who are coming through, honestly, have worked for the Crypt for 40 years and are still there as like a company secretary or something like that. So we can always go back to them. It's beautiful. It's ever, as I say, I've never worked for anywhere like it, but it is a real strength. And a little bit jarring at first, where it's a community and everyone's just talking. But actually, there's some real strength to it and a lot of value. It does have to keep the lines in, and you can't always go wild and do what you want to do. Absolutely not. You've got to double check and, as I say, look back at history, check your finances, make sure everything's in line. But often the best ideas come from the people who have been there for a number of years. So yeah, just share ideas is really what I would say. And do look back. You're absolutely right, Sarah. Yeah.
So it's absolutely fascinating listening to you talk about sort of the things that you've done, the considerations that you've had. And one of the things that were thinking about when we developed this session, this sort of looking at creative leadership when every penny counts, it feels like you've gone beyond the financial piece and actually thought about if we can be part of the built-in sort of architecture of that piece with the residential property. You don't have to then try and find your space back in. You're automatically considered to be part of it.
It's easier said than done, and it does require an awful lot of trust on your part. But it's one of the things I learned, to be quite frank, as a transferable skill from when I was a mortgage broker, is that often if you paint a good picture, you tell a quality story, you believe in your mission and what you're trying to achieve or achieve for the customer, whatever it may be, then people will buy into you or the organization as an individual. And you don't often need to talk about the actual monetary amounts and things. Of course, you have to have those conversations at some stage. Of course you do. But yeah, thinking about the wider future, where everyone's going, the vision, the story is actually far more valuable. It builds those longer term relationships. And in some ways, just trust that the funds will come later. Easier said than done, I know, but it has worked for me so far. And I would really, just say, get your story right. The story you want to tell to that individual, to that client, to that customer, whatever it may be, trying to sell a product or not, is get your story right and believe in it, and then people will buy from you.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind those that are on the call, if you do want to ask a question, we are going to be incorporating some questions that have been sent in already, but there is also the opportunity for you to raise a question. If something that Richard has said has maybe made a thought connect in your mind, there's something that you've just shared about that kind of, I think I took that kind of, what would happen if I tried it? That kind of growth mindset of, fail fast, learn fast. Obviously, it's really difficult when it's people at the heart of that. And you've got, I love the frame around that chaos into citizenship. We've all been in parts of our lives where it's been chaotic, some probably more profound than others. When you think about risks, and you might be from an organizational perspective, it might be from you looking back in the articles. How do you think the Crypt's been able to maintain that sort of clear direction and working out what risks are the ones that they can and can't take? Because that has got to be something quite nerve-wracking.
Absolutely, it's a challenge, and the reality is the Crypt has never had any form of funds or savings in the bank account, only enough to basically close it down and move on to it. To be quite honest, so it really is a challenge, and everything is considered. What I would say is a lot of it comes down to, as I say, that talking between each other, sharing ideas, communicating, and in some regards, as much as it is fail fast and all that sort of stuff, actually, before you pull the trigger, do make sure you spoke to as many people as possible is what I would say. And the other part that probably is more vital and more important to remember is that story. It's the brand is really what I'm talking about. Protect your mission, your brand, your vision that you have, because that underpins all the other work. So that vision that we have in Leeds City Centre, for example, to end homelessness, full stop, that is our vision. How we achieve that is done through multiple innovative different ways, different projects, different solutions for different people. And the way we've pulled the trigger on that is we've asked multiple questions before going ahead and doing so. So although the crypt, as I say, it moves quickly and we are innovative, there is always that pause before jumping the gun. And I think that that's really vital. I also would say that to revert back to the message around the brand, that is key. What you do next and why the business or the organization is doing it is really important. That for us at the Crypt is underpinned by our values. It's underpinned by the mission, the mission statement that we all use. And that's been created in collaboration with the trustees, with the board, with the SLT team and the staff as well to bring that together. So again, it's including everybody on that journey to bring it forwards. The other thing I would say is do have the confidence to walk away. If things are not right, if for whatever reason you're talking to another organization, another colleague or something just doesn't feel right in the sense of, you can see that vision isn't going to work, then do have the confidence to walk away from it. We at the charity have multiple opportunities and I am approached by multiple customers, multiple donors as such to support us. On the whole, most of them are absolutely wonderful, but do your due diligence. Double check where it's coming from, double check where they're coming from. Basically, as much as it's all well and good to talk between each other and share ideas, it absolutely is. You need to go away and do your own research in your own time to make sure that it's a goer. And that comes down to checking on your brand, your vision, making sure that it all aligns with that overarching strategy for the future. Strong leadership and governance from our trustees has been vital. So it's not so much a top-down approach, far from it. We're all invited to these meetings, but it does have to start from somewhere. And maybe that's you. Maybe that's the person listening now. Maybe that's that individual who actually wants to stand up and go, no, I'm sticking to the mission values, the brand. That is incredibly valuable. And it can be difficult to do so. You will get comments from other people like, no, just crack on and do it. Just what's you bothering for? Just make sure it happens. We need to make money. Be strong. And that is really, really important. And you'll find that it may not be that particular opportunity, but there'll be another one around the corner. And that holding your head held high and saying no to things is actually just as valuable as pushing forwards and taking the risk. That's my thoughts on that. Sorry, Sarah, can you still hear me? I do apologise, everybody. My sound's dropped off on your part.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
One of the things that I was just sharing, it's trying to make sure that innovation doesn't equal recklessness, and that innovation, we were privileged to be able to think about some of what innovation means to some of our regional members, and we were able to share them on our LinkedIn page. And you've just really sort of articulated that in a way for the Crypt that is about, there's accountability and there's diligence, and that senior leadership team and the trustees have got a really pivotal role in moving some of those things forward. But innovation is about moving forward and making progress rather than it being a kind of shredding the rule book. Is that what I? Yeah,
no, you've summarised it much better than I did, Sarah. Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't a case of ripping up the rule book and going outside the box and doing something totally new and reckless. Absolutely not. That's where taking that time to, as you say, do the due diligence is vital. Because you can very quickly find yourself halfway down a garden path and it's completely the wrong garden. So it's a balancing act, absolutely. And that's why I say it's important to walk away. If you do, so you've tried something, if it doesn't work, just pull back. and learn the lessons from it, make a note of it, do a feedback form, do an evaluation form, etc. Save that, make sure everybody knows about it, and that way that same mistake won't happen again in the future. And that's where we talked earlier about looking back on things. So the crypt's archives and records are extensive. Far too much information on there, to be honest with you, but it's all within that. There are tidbits of useful knowledge. And I think that's the point there is, yeah, just to do that diligence. Absolutely. On the whole, you know, in most cases, things are right. But if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut.
If we talk about the tricky subject of money, which, you know, I can imagine is never enough or not at the right time for the crypt. If I think about charities and on the whole, and we have CMI members who represent a whole array of organisations, sectors and sort of SME who might indeed be partners with you, we recognise that those charity organisations are always faced with that kind of continual challenge of funding and the stability of funding. Do you think that you've had to change your approach? Or has it been impacted by that sort of access to funds and that lack of stability?
Yes, is the simple answer. We've absolutely had to try new things, particularly in the fundraising departments, as well as the care side of it as well. So from the care perspective, that's things like the new SHAPS project that's been introduced, which is, I'll give a little bit of detail around a couple of areas of the crypt here, just to give a bit of insight. But SHAPS is single housed appropriate people. These are, it's a policy that's similar to Homes First. And in effect, you take somebody from the street, put them into a house with everything they need. That is incredibly expensive because that TV doesn't stay on the wall for very long, to be open and honest about it. Love our clients, really love them, but they do have issues. So yeah, the things like that. So we're trialing that with the council, for example. That's a brand new scheme. And because of the historic work we've done, we're at the forefront of their thinking. Similarly, when it comes to fundraising, for example, we haven't done a ball. The crypt has never done a ball. It's the 95th year, so we've got a ball coming up next Friday. You're all invited. Yay. Come on down. Yeah, but it's things like that, and that's become a real a real good fundraiser for us this year, to be honest with you. So it's trialing different things and looking around the market, because other societies, other charities do these things. They're clearly successful for a reason. Go on and do them. I would also encourage people to work collaboratively with other organizations. So we have a particular project called Leeds Big Sleep. You sleep out on the stadium, on the terraces, and experience of being outside for the evening. It's a really fun night, but we do that aligned with Leeds Rhinos. So Leeds Rhinos have a foundation. We go to their stadium, we sleep out on the terraces. So that's a real tick box for us. We're at Leeds Rhino stadiums. It's amazing. For them, they get access to all of our contacts, to be honest with you, who bring everybody down to sleep on the terraces, etc. So the idea with that is, you know, why would we do one on our own? Why would they do one on their own? And we both come away with 5,000, or we can work together and both walk away with £20,000 between us because we've combined our markets together. And things like that we're trying to do all the time, to be honest with you, and it has to be done in the modern world. We've got to work better together. We've got facilities, they've got facilities, so let's share them. And things like that have been really, really valuable to us, to be honest with you. I would also really encourage everybody to look internally at their teams. We've got a cracking lad, Will Burns. I'll give his full name. He was on Britain's Got Talent. He got Ant and Dec's Golden Buzzer. Yeah, amazing. So he, because of the foresight of my leadership team, etc., they gave him the opportunity to basically, in effect, take that 5 months out, go and enjoy Britain's Got Talent, be a success on there, got the buzzer, as I say, and now he's come back to the crypt, and his creative skills are incredible. Just so talented. And that's the point, is that giving people that space, it's similar with the clients, we give them the space to develop their skills and talents. We can now utilize those to be more successful, to generate more funds, to help more people. And I think that's a really vital, to be honest with you. So I'd look to all the other organizations where you can link up and work together. And then, as I say, I'd also really look to your teams and get to know them on a personal level, see where their strengths are, encourage them to be part of that mission, that goal that you're trying to achieve as an organization. And you'll draw out their gold, their little bits of talents and their gifts. And that's incredibly valuable. It's amazing, actually, to be honest, what you'll have internally, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. That saves us an awful lot of money, because we haven't, with Will, for example, we don't have to outsource to a PR or a marketing agency, etc. He can do those things for us. And there'll be somebody within your teams that will do a similar thing. Maybe they're experts on eBay because they run an eBay store at home or something. And just really do think about who's in your teams and how you can best utilize them. That will save money straight away. From a fundraising perspective, the reality is the markets are very difficult at the moment. I know on a personal basis, my buffer at the end of the month has come down dramatically. And that's the same for lots of businesses. So you have to work with them on their level. And one of the key phrases that I tend to use is, I will work with you how you want to work with us. It's as simple as that. So it gives them the opportunity to tell me their needs. So I establish a need from a sales perspective, and then I come in and I fulfill that. And that simple question of just what do you need is really, really valuable. And I'll work with you to make, your life easier is really how we've built those relationships. They are built at a bigger level on a wider organization basis, as I say, working with things like Leeds Rhinos and the Crypt together, but it's also much, much smaller basis as well. And it's a challenge, is the honest truth, to continually fundraise, to get out there and to raise money. You have to pick yourself back up. One of the best things about our office is we have a lot of fun. And I know, we're here to talk about innovation and money, but it's a tough slog out there. Every single day, getting a lot of no's in whatever role it may be. You've got to keep your environment happy and fun. And what that will do is that will keep your staff happy, and they'll work harder for you. It sounds easy, it's really basic stuff in theory, but it is vital to the success. And that's where we see it, is by basically put the fun in fundraising.
I like it. We've got lots of buzzwords. So I just want to go back to that really innovative sort of opportunity of letting a colleague or enabling a colleague to go and do something that for them was probably a passion project, something that really meant the world to them. And they possibly thought, I can't possibly do this because, and you were able to say, but you can if. Mm-hmm. I think it brings a real sort of moment to me of, as we think about how our regional boards work within the CMI, as I think about sort of professional roles I undertake and volunteer roles, there's something about the richness of that skills audit, or, formally a skills audit, but effectively just looking around you to see what people can add and bring. I'm definitely going to take that one away as something that, from an innovation point of view, that doesn't cost any money. It can be the question of what can you bring, but also what can I invest back in you? What can I give to you? It could be that your colleague wants to make a world in the creative arts space, but hasn't yet found a pathway, and you could open a pathway up. So, I think that's a really powerful step about, it's not just the take, it's sometimes the give.
Yeah. And in most cases, I should say, you'll be pleasantly surprised what comes back. I think karma or whatever it is. But yeah, the giving, and I think we do it really well with our clients, and that then filters through to our staff, is the truth. So it's part of the organization's values, is to give that transformational time, that space for people to work through what's their passion, as I say, what they want to do. For the clients, it's, instead of going down the pub drinking, we'll get them in the pub singing on a Thursday or something like that. It's just wicked. But then for staff, as I say, it could be off to do a course on that. We are a Christian-based organisation, just to highlight that. You don't have to be a Christian to work here or anything, but it's just built around the values of love. So for a lot of the staff, there are away days available to go out to retreats and things like that. So 5 days extra holiday for those things. It's all those little simple bits and pieces that just give people the space to explore themselves personally, which means that they come to work as their best self, ready to engage and really give it their all.
it's almost finding their purpose in your purpose, isn't it? In terms of how that works. And we are going to come on to some questions in a moment that have been sent in, but I wonder if there's something that's sort of cropped up as you were talking, which is the power of why you're doing what you're doing. And I wonder if there is something about, we can be as innovative as we like, but actually the power of seeing the people that you're impacting, those service users that are coming through your door, the person who turns their life around in that 12-month window, that comes back and shares their story with you. Do you think that helps you to be more innovative, or to do the very best you can, rather than being in an organization that's maybe a couple of steps away from the person that you're impacting?
The simple answer once again is yes. And I can't deny it is difficult for those businesses where they are, as you say, 2 or 3 steps away from that kind of customer, or that front facing element, especially if you're with an infrastructure or something further down the line where you're providing a third party service, that sort of thing. But there is value to it, and if you can make that happen, I would really encourage it. I spend all of my days in and around the clients. They come out with us to fundraising events, so I'll bring them out to speak and to talk at certain opportunities when they're in the right place and when it's right for them, sort of thing. Or they'll come and help at fairs and fetes and things like that. So we involve our customers, our clients, in everything we do. That absolutely fills me with an awful lot of joy. It makes me happy. It encourages me to come to work. From a larger organization perspective, that can be difficult. And I think in my experience in the past, it's very much been a case of stats. Oh, we achieved 90% on this, we got 10% on that. All well and good. Personal stories are the thing that captures me, and I think captures a lot of the staff that I work with. It's those individual journeys, whether it's Dale, Elliot, a few other names. I'm not going to share anything personal, but there are, these people who come through, we know them as an individual. And I think that if you can get to know your clients, get to know your stats, get to know what you're doing better. And that's where I talk about brand values and mission. We're all there for the mission to end homelessness in the city centre. That's the story we all tell consistently as a chorus. And that sort of mindset is easier said than done to be created, but it must be put into an organisation. Without everybody being on the same page, moving in the same direction, you will see little, bitty arguments. And that's where it comes from, our innovation. It's because we're all there for the same reason. If someone says something and it's a bit of a crazy, risky idea, or a bit wild, then actually they'll give it a moment of consideration because it's come from the best place. They're always, you give everybody that default setting that they're speaking from their heart and trying to do it from the right way. And I think that's one of our strengths, is that it's that open door policy. Everyone has the opportunity to talk, but everyone is heard as well. And I think that then filters into, as I said, the client's journey, the customers. And if you are three places back from the end customer, actually leadership above that need to encourage you in that journey and explain these are the people you're helping and why we're helping them and what that's going to do for them, and get the buy-in from the staff. That story to bring everybody along. It's all about influencing change and innovation and all that sort of thing. You've got to influence it. You can't force it. And it's about culture. Yeah.
We're going to take a couple of questions. First one's going to be a question that came in from Claire. But I also want to think about anybody else on this call who's listening or watching back in, trying to close that gap between the 3 steps away and the impact on somebody is maybe leaning into what the work that the Crypt is doing. So if you're in the Leeds area. So question from Claire, how can we encourage an innovative mindset and create the environment for innovation? Do you think there's any sort of special tips, or do you think it's a kind of a slow burn? What are your sort of thoughts?
I would say it's a slow burn. You're absolutely correct. And I think the Crypt moves quickly, but in a slow way, if that makes sense. There's a lot of talk that goes on within the offices, within the environments, and a lot of sharing of ideas. But then actually moving forwards with those ideas is where we will then pause and do the due diligence and the reflection. So I think that having that open environment for everyone to share ideas is really valuable. It creates that innovation. for example, the Kirkstall Road project came from not necessarily from the senior leadership. That came from one of the support workers who's been working closely at one of our other sites that Clarion were helping to fix. So it's just by chatting, and it really is those small things that, as I say, make a huge difference. From that conversation went up to the head of client services, and then he's obviously divvied that out to SLT, and that's where it's been created. But it's simply a case of time, getting to know everybody, taking the space, and it costs money to give space. I won't deny that. But what you'll see on the back of that is great value. And it might seem counterintuitive to take a workshop away day, something like that, with the team to go and get to know them and things like that. We do it at the Crypt. We're a charity. It simply is unaffordable in some regards for us to spend a day out of the office. But actually what that means is we all get to know each other really well. We all know closely. We do a bit of insights training so everyone knows their skills. And I think that is what our insight training is so valuable, so valuable. Read the different colours. And what that's allowed us to do is to bring out all of our strengths. We all know where we all stand with each other. And it's about creating, I would say, a safe space would be really valuable. Allowing people the opportunity to speak freely without fear of repercussions. That is hugely valuable, and that's what we have at the Crypt. That's why we put the fun in fundraising, because we're always having fun, we're always having a joke, being idiots, but it's brilliant. And that's where that life comes out. You're happy to be at work, you're happy to do things. To create that environment, as I say, is easier said than done. But it does mean about creating that safe environment, make sure everyone gets to know each other, give people the space. And one of the things that I've recently been doing, I don't know if I can't remember what it was called, sorry, but storming, norming and performing. So those, use the models, guys, use those models that are out there, because it's very true, and teach the team whilst you do it. So at the moment, guys, we've all come together, we're storming at the minute, it's all right, it will settle. Now we're performing, and bring them along with that and explain the models to them as well, because they will learn from that, and they create innovation, basically continuous improvement. Make sure you're always trying to learn something new. And it comes from the top, but maybe it doesn't come from the top. Maybe it comes from you, and you start in the middle and start that journey for the business. And it does require one individual. I could pinpoint one individual in particular at the Crypt that's really brought that forwards and created this world of innovation in the modern age. And it's because they are genuinely kind, happy to talk. They give space. They hold people to account. It is important to be candid. You can't just let things slide, but they do make things safe, and that is hugely valuable. Yeah.
I love the two parts of Claire's question about that sort of innovative mindset and then the environment for innovation, because I think you possibly could try to do them independently, and you'd have limited, if you had an innovative mindset and then the organization wasn't set up for innovation, then you'd end up with a lot of frustration. Precisely. But if you had an organization that's set up for innovation and not everybody's got that innovative mindset, it might feel as though it's a bit of a there's no rules and everybody's sort of free flowing. What you shared about that sort of degree of psychological safety, about being able to think out loud, and I often talk with teams that I work with and lead about thinking out loud. I will say openly, and a vulnerability of, that didn't work how I thought it would, but I think I might go back to the last sort of firm ground I had and go back from there. So that mindset and environment, do you think that's, just to finish off Claire's question, do you think that you can have one without the other?
I think you can, but I think, as you said, Sarah, you won't see the same successes. So you will find frustration, and that might mean that one idea, so let's say you've got a really innovative team, but as you say, it's not an innovative environment, that will lead to the frustration that you mentioned there. And that will see maybe one idea come forwards, everybody else will leave and you'll lose your talent. But you've got that one idea come forwards, which is great, valuable, absolutely. But without that full wider picture, you will not retain the staff. If anything, you'll upset them, because they'll suddenly be encouraged to go, oh my God, I can come up with all these new ideas, and then nothing happens. So the follow-up is vital. That's where that innovative environment and basically getting the buy-in from people to come along with your journey, with your story, is massive. And so the reality is no, in the simplest terms. But if you got one rather than the other, it's better to not have it. It's better to have people who are being innovative than not. But it will lead frustration. So that safe space and valued, people know that they're being listened to, and although it may not happen instantly, they need to know that their thoughts are being passed up the chain, that things are being heard, and at some stage they'll either move forwards, or if it's not right, they get feedback as to why it's not right, why this isn't the opportunity. That feedback loop to make sure that everybody is speaking and hearing about why we're not doing something or why we are is huge. And the why often actually I think would be the link between that sort of innovative idea but not an innovative environment. So if they can understand the why behind, okay, well, we can't be innovative environment right now because there isn't we've got to watch every single penny, we've got to stick to the marker, or it could be that we're not being innovative because we're making loads of money and we're sat back on our on our laurels. So but the why that's happening is the crux of the question for the organization to figure out. And once you figure out why that's happening, you can deal with the challenge that comes up.
Yeah. I absolutely sort of agree, and can see when I reflect on, I'm quite a reflector, things I've done where that can sort of have been played out. We've got a question from Reese that I think plays to a bit of an extension of what we've been talking about previously. So at times of financial pressure, which we've acknowledged is happening now, the language of innovation can appear threatening to people. What techniques and suggestions do you have to mitigate this? So my sort of personal reflection is, when I talk about innovation, if I think about the different sectors that I've worked in at different times, innovations meant different things to different people. So even just clarity over what the word meant, rather than overthinking it. But I'm really keen to understand what your sort of appreciation is around that question.
I'm always a believer, really, that and it's a skill that I've developed over the years, to be quite frank, but I adapt my tone for the people that I'm speaking with. And I change my style depending on who I'm speaking with. Active listening skills, all that sort of thing, as I'm sure everyone's aware of. The simple truth is it's always difficult to manage, and everybody approaches things a different way. The innovation is there's a lot of large words that are used. I'm doing a Cornell course at the moment, level 7 strategic leadership, so it's just a lot of jargon. And the truth is, talking plainly, looking somebody in the eye and just talking about, actually, mate, we're in difficulty, we're struggling, money's not coming in, and just using normal language breaks down those barriers. So you can talk high level, and I appreciate it may be different when we're talking to a board or to an SLT team, etc. But genuinely, be yourself is what I would say, and that will filter through to the person you're speaking to. The truth is, I don't think that anybody at the moment is not aware that there are financial pressures on everybody. And if it's happening to you, it's likely happening to them. So you're not approaching it from a position of complete randomness. It's not coming out of the blue. The simple truth is that everybody is looking to save every penny or to make every penny possible at the moment. And certainly right now, I wouldn't be concerned about it at all, to be honest. It is everybody knows there's financial pressures left, right, and centre. And when I go out and meet a business, they almost expect me to tell them that.
I think there's something really honest about that. It's not a surprise. We're not stating the obvious. We just need to make it relevant. We have actually got a question that's come through that really takes us into the next sort of step. So a question from Jippy on the live chat. So how have you navigated the difficulties of showing the value of a project to senior leaders? So we've talked about having that open narrative, but how do you articulate the value? Does it have to be cost? Could it be sort of impact in a different way?
Yeah, so there are two basic ways that we would assess value, and it is cost, financial, but also client, for us at the moment, it's client outcomes, as we would call them. So that would be at the end of that project, they've come to the end of the 12 months, 2 years, whatever it may be, they're moving on to their own private housing, in with family, back in their own world as such. So that's how we assess them currently, to be frank. And for my area in particular, or the area of the CRIP that we're working with in charity, there is an industry standard. And we can compare that to other organisations. It's all shared on the certain reports and things like that. So that's how we do it currently. The reality is, if things, again, my message is going to be honest, is the truth. If things are not as you would like them to be, if things are not as they appear, you have to face it with candid, what was the word? You have to face it with honesty and be really truthful about the reality of the situation. It may very well be that because of X, Y, and Z reasons, something hasn't come to fruition, and just be frank about that. It'd be a difficult conversation to have. The best way that we find to share value, to share the value of a project, maybe not so much to senior leadership because they understand what's going on there, but to a wider audience, is to tell a story. And I would think similarly it would work with senior leadership, to be honest with you, is to tell, maybe, actually we should have for example, we should have an 85% successful move on rate. We've only done 80. And the reason behind that is because of X, Y, and Z, financial costs, etc. But to put it on a positive spin, I had, I don't know, Caris, who's been successful. She's now 12 months clean of drugs and alcohol. She's coming through the other side. So it's a good news, bad news, good news, all that sort of stuff. But you can put a positive spin on things by telling the stories and the work that's gone on by your staff, by your clients, by your customers, whoever it may be. It could be that they've come back for a second or a third time, so you're getting repeat business. It shows you're building relationships. There are other things to highlight than just that top line figure. So do break down your stats, and hopefully that's helpful, really. But the reality is, it's for us, it's a case of finances. It absolutely is, and you just grin and bear it and go, right, we're achieving target, we're not achieving target. But the why, again, is really valuable, and that's where I talk about why has that happened, and then tell a story. So hopefully that's some help.
No, I'm hopeful it is as well. Jippy's on the call, so we obviously encourage you to put comments in there. We've got 2 more questions actually, but before we moved on, one of the things I've often found is try and find out what currency that senior leader learns in. So if they're part of a financial team, they're often going to want to know about the numbers. If they're in the people team or the L&D space, or maybe ops, they might be interested in the outcomes. So sometimes you can tailor your sort of response in the same way that we flick to either the front page, the back page, the pictures when we see a report. It's something that drives us trying to, if we can be responsive to our answer. So we've got a question coming from PB around passion can only go so far, which we all know, painfully so. But with stretched resources and rising living costs, how do charities balance fair pay with workload and retain those innovative staff? You want to keep the best.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Is it the fun in fundraising?
Pretty much. Yes, Sarah, absolutely. The way that, as I say, it was so I came from a corporate world prior to this, worked as a mortgage broker, did that for 9 years, worked for HSBC, an entirely different environment. Coming into the charity sector has been a huge eye-opener into how things work. And it is very different from the corporate world, to be quite frank with you. That's where that different environment comes in, where everyone's sharing ideas and things like that. It's an entirely different world from anything I've experienced in the past, with levels and layers. Passion does go an awful long way. It does reach a limit. You're absolutely correct. We are, as best as we can, we absolutely pay a fair wage, but people will do more than they are expected to. They call it a calling to join the crypts, using that sort of language. I personally am not a huge fan of that, to be quite honest with you. And I think that at the end of the day, people come to work to do a job, they get paid, and then they go home, and that's completely fair. But the way that we balance that and retain the staff is absolutely by offering fun things. So it may be silly, but there'll be chocolate bars in the break room. There will be, as best as we can get them, at least anyways, there will be fun days at Christmas, at Easter, in the summer. So we do all of those little events throughout the year to keep people engaged. And the truth is, people who are in the care sector specifically, which is our area, are there because they are genuinely honest and nice people on the whole. And I think that speaks volumes. We are in effect a third sector service now. So we, the clients that do the people that do the duty team stuff, the support workers, the mental health workers, absolute heroes. I couldn't do what they do on a daily basis. There's no two ways about it. And we just hold them in high regard, I think is the truth. You have to give them the kudos. You have to say, well done. You have to say, that's an amazing job you've done there. And that retains it. Is we really do keep them in high regard and basically listen and refer to them at all occasions. So they, for example, would be involved in the new projects that are being created because they're on the coalface. They're dealing with it on a daily basis. There's an awful, and I guess this may not be quite transferable, but actually it could be, to be fair. We have an awful lot of staff who have lived experience of addiction, of homelessness, of physical, mental abuse, whatever it may be, who work for the crypt. So they are automatically, because they've seen it, they've been there themselves, they're brought in to it, and they will do more than they should, to be honest with you. So it's a challenge. On the whole, we keep people happy by doing fun days, by making sure they are looked after as best as we can do. The salaries are not high. I will not deny that at all. But it is the way of the world. And we work to the parameters of everybody else. So our salaries are the same as the rest of the paid care sector, because we can't afford. We would pay more if we could, but we can't afford to. So it's a balancing act. I won't deny that at all. The retention of staff tends to come, though, from progression in our scenario. So what we'll often see is people come through as a support worker, that then might move to a project lead, and then from that they'll be moving over to a one of the other departments within the crypt itself. So it does come from progression, and it also comes from valuing their thoughts and ideas. If they say to us, we need a new, fridge, or actually the door around the back is hanging off and it's causing safety issues, it'll be fixed straight away. They are absolutely listened to and respected, I think is the key factor there. Yeah.
Perfect. And actually, we've got our last question coming from Sunshine. I think there's something about what you've just said about reward and recognition, and what that looks and feels like, whether it is the thank you or it's a physical sort of move forward, whether that be professional progression, or if it's something just to know that people are heard and listened to, whether it is the squeaky door or the Kit Kat in the break room. So Sunshine's question is, time alongside money comes up as an excuse for many leaders or managers or teams, as an obstacle to why things are not changing and maybe a barrier to innovation. How do you overcome this? So that's a bit of a killer question.
Planning, as best as I can. We've planned for Christmas next year, as it stands. So that things will change within that. Absolutely. It's not a dead cert, far from it, but we are looking. When I talk about looking ahead and that further vision for the future, the charity as a whole, as an organisation, is looking 5-10 years ahead. We, as a fundraising team, are at least looking 12 months ahead. And I think that is really key. And then within that, you can alter and change and restructure throughout the year. So if things do happen that it's very tight and really we've organised too many events in a short space of time, whatever it may be, then we know that won't happen next year. The things that help us to move past those barriers abound, lenders, managers and teams, because we do come across it consistently. We are an innovative department, but there are values, there's a mission, there's a brand that we have to protect. And it wouldn't be right for us as a Christian organisation to do to work with, I know it drives me up the wall, but Rockstar is based in Leeds, the largest. They made GTA 6, one of the biggest companies. I can't touch them because it's not right for us as an organisation to link up with that, because it's promoting the wrong things. from our perspective, from the CRIP perspective at least. And overcoming those barriers sometimes is not possible. You have to just accept that that is a situation. But really, the way that we do that, as I say, is genuinely planning as best as we can, plan ahead. And if things then change within that, be flexible. It's not a set in stone plan, far from it. But yeah, have a vision for that 12-month period. And if things change, and you know, they likely will do, then you have to be able to be flexible and change with that. And part of the way of encouraging people above to be flexible with you is to be open and honest about that, is to lay out your plan and say, actually, we're doing X, Y, and Z, but actually we're aware that, you know, this week here is summer holidays, so things might not go to plan. There's, you know, we haven't got the money because it's been spent elsewhere, etc. It's gone to a client's project or something, so that event will be cancelled. And it can always change, but you need to have a rough idea at least of where you're heading.
I love the planning. I'm a planner, so you know, the thought that there are already pieces in train, and I would love to think that our CMI regional board can be part of your 100th celebrations at the crypt. So if you've got plans in place for that, let's start getting that in place. So I can't believe that we're nearly at the end of our time together. It has absolutely flown by. On a personal level, the chance to understand more about the St George's Crypt, from the moment that you were suggested as a participant and a speaker and an innovator, to now, it's been a journey for me of understanding. And I've taken so many notes out of tonight, which I'm sure other people have as well. But it's been an important one, and I will definitely be thinking hard how I can create an impact to support your service users, but also the professional conversations around innovation. We can make a change every day, but thinking about that sort of long-term plan, but putting the fun back into what we do and making sure people feel safe to contribute. So once again, a huge thanks on behalf of my North East Yorkshire and Humber Regional Board, for those who've dialed in, and for you, Richard. Those watching back with a cuppa, you missed a treat, but you're not, because you've had the chance to contribute. For those that offered live questions, thank you so much. And yeah, that's a wrap. I'm just going to hand back to Michael. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Richard. What a wonderful and inspiring discussion this evening. Thank you all. Please stay tuned to hear more about CMI membership, and thank you for joining us today.
Don't forget, as a CMI member, you can find the latest management and leadership insights at managers.org.uk. If you're not yet a member, join our community to discover CMI Confidence with on-demand resources, our network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations.